Okay. What day of the week is it now?
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I'll gladly pay you yesterday for a hamburger on Tuesday or something like that.
Wow, you do not know your classic cartoons. That's
Let me see
and
what it
wimpy,
actually is.
wimpy. I'll gladly
I'm
pay
paying
you
you
Tuesday
Tuesday
for
for
a
a
hamburger
hamburger
today.
today.
But if today is Tuesday, then that what you're gonna
Yeah.
so you're gonna pay for your hamburger today?
Did you
I
see
wonder if
that?
he ever actually paid for his hamburger on Tuesdays.
Did you see that meme where it's got that character and it's got like all the burger fast food chain symbols in the background, and then it's like it's Tuesday.
Come, come pay your
Yeah,
bill.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, but it is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Um, we are going to look actually at the prayer that Abimelech had. We decided we're going to count it. Whether you count it or not, it's up to you. We talked about prayer and visions and dreams and whether people talking to God in a dream or a vision is a prayer. And we're gonna we made the call. We're gonna yeah, that's the whistle like the referee. No, I didn't have an
No,
actual
no,
referee
no, no,
whistle.
no. We don't call things. We count things.
Oh. Well, uh,
One prayer.
yeah.
Ah,
We're
ah, ah,
we're
ah.
gonna count this one. We're going to allow it to be considered as a prayer. I don't know if God considered it a prayer or not. It was a conversation with God. And Abimelech does ask God for something, which is intercession is one of the things that makes prayer prayer. So we're going to count it.
And
And if you
again,
don't want to, that's your business.
yeah, us counting things as prayer, like that's just for this series, so we can look at stuff and kind of be like, okay, here's what's going on
Yeah,
here.
we have to
Yeah,
draw the line somewhere.
yeah.
We have to make decisions about what is and
And
so this one, we're going to say
as
it is for now.
as big as the Bible is and as much stuff there is in it, especially concerning people talking to God, there's probably going to be something that would fall into our category as a prayer that we're going to miss somewhere along the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm sure we're going to
So
miss some things.
if
Oh,
you're like, well, what about this prayer in
well, and if,
Zedekiah chapter 34, verse 2?
oh,
And we're like,
yeah,
yeah, sorry, we forgot about that one.
that's because I didn't read Zedekiah. I feel
Yeah,
so bad.
yeah,
I thought I'd read the
well,
Bible,
see,
but I
it's a
missed
it's a
Zedekiah.
very not well known book.
It is.
Yeah,
It is. That one in the book of Hezekiah. They both,
Hezekiah. Yeah,
Hezekiah and Zedekiah
yeah.
both, I mean, they're books. Anyway,
But the second book of opinions,
that
man,
one's popular.
yeah, people go all through that
Most people have that one
one.
memorized.
Yes,
I mean, some people like they know it as
cover
well
to
as like
cover.
as if they wrote it themselves.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I mean that well. They know
Not,
it that
I'm not
well.
sure if I've met anybody like that, but I mean, that's impressive, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right. So in Genesis chapter 20, we have the situation where Abraham and Sarah have deceived Abimelech.
they did a bad thing.
They did, and yet and people are troubled sometimes because God doesn't ever really punish Abraham for this. Um, and what we have to understand, of course, is that the Bible does not always tell us everything about everything. If it did, it would be so huge we would never be able to read it all. So
What John
Abraham,
said,
yeah, right. That's exactly what John said, and that was
and he
just
was
about.
only talking about Jesus.
That's right. He was just talking about, you know, 3 years of Jesus' ministry is really all he was talking about.
Yep.
So, yeah, if that 3 years couldn't be concluded, then certainly everything else couldn't. So we run into this situation where we know that God did not approve of what Abraham and Sarah did. Abraham did not trust God to protect him. Instead, he came up with this deceitful way of trying to protect himself. We know that wasn't right. But just because he did this thing wrong and just because God doesn't necessarily show what punishment or what the consequences were. For one thing, he almost lost his wife to another man instead of, just telling the truth about it. But anyway,
I gotta,
it's,
I feel like Sarah would not have been happy with that, where it's like, you're gonna give me to another guy to save your own skin. It just like,
well, she was also the one who said, "Here's my servant Hagar, take her as a wife."
that's
So
true.
their relationship was a little odd to say. I
Can
mean,
can I do my favorite quote here?
okay,
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but go ahead, do
The
your favorite.
Hamish one where I said she was pretty. I never said she was smart.
Oh, well, okay. I guess you
I
did it.
like that
That
quote.
is
Yeah.
that is a quote. And yeah, well, Abraham certainly thought she was pretty. Believed that she was so beautiful
There you go.
that they would kill him to get her.
There you go.
I mean, I have seen some beautiful women in the
We're
world.
getting off track. We're supposed to be talking about the prayer.
Yeah, we are.
I dropped my Bible.
You dropped your Bible. I've seen some beautiful women. And I suppose there were some that people would maybe have killed for, but those would be some horrible people to kill for a beautiful woman. But that's how lowly he thought of Abimelech and his people. And Abimelech is not that person. Abimelech is a pretty good guy. He actually, in some ways, seems like a more upstanding guy than Abraham. But he, thinking that she is Abraham's sister, because that's what they said, Abimelech takes her as his wife. I mean, that's guy's got a sister. She's not married. She needs a husband. Well, here we go. And so Abimelech is going to marry Sarah and takes her to be his wife. In verse 3 of chapter 20, then God comes to Abimelech in a dream. And we talked about just because God comes first does not necessarily mean there's not a prayer involved. God comes and he says, "You're a dead man. The woman you've taken is another man's wife." Abimelech had not yet come near her. So God warns him before he's actually committed adultery with her. So that's important and that's good.
Good thing that.
Yeah. And so Abimelech, then here's where the prayer part would come in. He says, "Lord, will you kill a righteous nation?" So he says, "Didn't he say she's my sister? And didn't she herself say he's my brother? It's in the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands that I've done this thing." And so God hears his prayer and answers his prayer. It is obviously a very sincere prayer. Abimelech is a sincere prayer. Abimelech makes it clear, and God understands he would not have taken Sarah if he did not think that she was a free woman.
Why would you have wax in a prayer anyway? You said it was a sincere prayer.
It was without wax. Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Latin.
Yeah.
Anyway, that doesn't make. Talk about getting off track.
You're the one that started talking about wax. I mean,
But I was talking about it in a foreign language so they wouldn't know.
well, yes, and I am here to clarify things for our viewers.
Are you our interpreter?
Yes.
My
So
interpreter?
when you go on in Latin about wax, then I'd be like, he's talking about wax.
Uh,
There
okay.
is none.
So God answers his prayer.
Yes.
He does. In the very next verse, in verse 6, God says, "I know, and that's why I stopped you before you sinned." So, I mean, God knew that Abimelech was not out to do something wrong, and so he protects him from doing wrong. Wouldn't it be nice, though, if God always came and stopped us before we did something wrong? I mean, wouldn't that be nice?
Well, see, the thing there is that Abimelech wasn't trying to do wrong. He was trying to do what's right. He thought that he was innocent and doing everything okay,
Right.
and that was why God stopped him. When we go out trying to do stuff on our own and we want to do something wrong because of our sinful nature and desires, God's not going to stop us there.
Well, it's interesting though. He has warned us.
Yeah.
That's what the entire Bible is
Yes.
warnings. Don't do this.
Yes.
It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
real quick, I just want to think for a second about how powerful it is that God just says, "I know."
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just where you paused there, it just kind of hit me. Wow.
well, I mean, yeah. Is there anything?
I mean, he didn't even have to say anything else there. It's just, I know.
He does, and he
Yeah.
does know. I mean, about anything that could always be his answer.
Yeah.
I know. be the answer
And
always.
also, how great it is to have a God who is understanding and listening when no matter what you say, he could just reply with, I know. Because could
But he
you,
still listens.
yes, could you imagine how terrible you'd feel and how little you would want to talk to him if every single time you came before him, you knew the response was just going to be,
Yeah,
I
I
know.
know. Yeah. Well, I mean, think about too how amazing that is with him because how many times, especially, somebody who's maybe going has Alzheimer's or something like that,
Yeah.
where they tell you the same stories over and over again. They say the
Hmm.
same thing, and it gets old.
Yeah.
Things that you already, it's like, I know. Why are you telling me this
Hmm.
again today? You just told me 5 times already today.
I am someone's friend like that, where I'm like, hey, have I told you this story? And they're like, yeah, 7 times. I'm like,
Yes,
you want to hear it again?
we all know about the carrot. Well, they don't know about
You want to hear about a carrot?
not now. Anyway, so but we know how that would annoy us. And so sometimes we may think, well, I can't talk to God about that because I've already talked to him. He knows and so we don't want to bother him. But he wants to hear it. Just
Hmm.
like with Abimelech here. He warns Abimelech so that Abimelech will talk to him. So even though he already knows,
Yeah.
he could have just said, "Hey Abimelech, that's another guy's wife. You need to give her back because I know you didn't mean to take her." But he just says, "Oh, you're a dead man." What? What did I do? I took this one. I didn't know she was another man's wife. Uh, and then he goes on then and gives him restore the man his wife, give her back, and he'll pray for you. You'll live. If you don't restore her, you're gonna die, and all yours. So here's a king of people knowing if he doesn't do what God wants him to do, he's going to die and all of his country is going to
Hmm.
die.
And
That's amazing.
the next verse is interesting,
Talk
where
about power.
a little bit later on, Abraham responds to one of Abimelech's questions, and he says, "The reason I did this is because I thought there wasn't a fear of God in the land." And you can see from the dream and Abimelech's reaction to it that there's a fear of God in Abimelech. But more than that, if you look at verse 8, so Abimelech got up early the next morning. He summoned all his servants, and he told them all these things,
Yeah.
and the men became terrified. So Abraham was afraid of the entire region not fearing God, and not only is the king a God-fearing, pretty upright, righteous
Yeah.
person, but all of his servants are
Yeah. They're afraid
they're
when they
they're
find out.
afraid of God.
Yeah.
They are God-fearing people,
Right.
as far as we can see through and through. And Abraham's fears were just totally unfounded.
Yeah. Unjustified fear. And, fear does get us to do wrong things a lot
Yep.
of the time. And yeah, it is amazing here, that we see here's a man who's outside of, he's not got anything to do with Abraham and his line and God's people that God's going to choose. And yet God still comes and talks to him and answers his prayer
And protects them.
and protects him
Yeah.
from sin and from doing wrong.
Yep.
It's an amazing story, it really is. And one that tells us a lot about the way things were back then on all sides. And there's a lot more. I mean, we could probably spend 4 more lessons just on this
Mhm.
interaction with Abraham and Sarah
Yeah.
and Abimelech.
And that's one of the things that kind of want everyone that watches these to understand as well, is that we're going to be spending almost a year talking on topics of prayer and just going through specific prayers in the
Yeah,
Bible. And even then, we're just scratching the surface. We're just like
yeah,
reading off these prayers, giving you maybe one or
yeah,
two
yeah.
points,
I mean,
and then we're moving on. And that is taking us 10, 15 minutes of video.
yeah, every
Um,
day. Yeah,
if you want to really get into a specific prayer or a specific topic of prayer or prayer itself, it is a long,
it's a deep
in-depth
study.
study.
Yeah,
It's a
we're.
very deep study.
It's sad to say that 9 months or whatever, 8 months or however long we spend on this is just an introduction, really.
Yes.
I mean, But that's how much there is about prayer in the
Yes.
Bible. That we're just introducing the subject. So, all right,
And if you've made it this far and
you
you're looking
survived.
ahead and you're like,
Yeah,
what do you mean that this entire year worth of lessons is just an introduction? Then yeah, welcome to the Bible. This is the way
yeah,
life is.
yeah. That's the way the Bible works. There's,
Hmm.
you can tell, you can just do the brush over the top,
Hmm.
like we do with the kids, where we just tell them the little Bible stories.
Hmm.
But it's something. I had a professor. He was 80 something years old, 80 years old, somewhere around
Oh, I
there.
was gonna tell this.
You can't tell that it's my story because it's my professor.
Okay.
80 something years old, and he said, every time I read the Bible, he'd been studying it his whole life. He was a professor, he'd been teaching it
Yep.
for 60 years almost.
Yeah.
He'd been teaching it since he was in his early 20s. And here he is, 80 something years old. He says, every time I pick up the Bible and open it and read it, I learn something that I didn't know before. And that's how deep it is, that you got the little kid stories, but then you've also got the depth that you will never
Hmm.
know everything there is to know about the Bible.
And there's also this story. Was this your professor too? The circles on the paper?
I don't remember circles.
Okay. There's the story that the college student was concerned that he didn't know very much about the Bible, so he went to his Bible professor and he said, "I don't think I can keep up in your class. I don't know enough scripture. I don't know enough of what the Bible says." And the professor, I feel like it was your professor.
I do not know this story.
Okay. The professor had been teaching for quite a while, and the student believed that he knew a lot more about the Bible than uh, the student did, and so he said, "Okay, well, here's this sheet of paper. However much you think you know about the Bible, I want you to draw a circle that big. That this sheet represents the entire Bible, and I want you to draw a circle showing how much you think you know of the Bible." And the guy said, "Okay." And so he drew a circle, and then the professor takes a paper and a pencil back, and he says, "Okay, here's how much I think I know about the Bible." And he handed it back to his student, and the student looked at it and he's like, "Sir, that's not much bigger than the circle that I drew, but you've been studying the Bible a whole lot longer than I have." And the professor said, "Yeah, there's a lot to know."
So we'll keep studying it tomorrow.
Yep.
So y'all have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.